I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street. Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This is a rare return appearance. This episode is the return appearance of Ambush Vin, Sci-Fi rapper and all-around cool dude. In this episode, we sort of catch up with how we've been since COVID, and we talk about his recent relationship status change and the new EP that he wrote to help him deal with that change. It's a 5-song EP. Each song represents one of the stages of grief. The album is called Shakespeare, and the tracks focus on denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. He even lets me play one of those dope-ass tracks, so pay attention. You're going to love it. This is my second conversation with sci-fi rapper and lyrical genius Ambush Vin.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
Welcome back to Fascination Street Podcast, Ambush Vin, a rare repeat guest. How you doing today, man?
Oh, man, I'm doing good. Doing good. Life is great.
Well, that is fantastic. I think I can count on one hand, definitely less than two hands, how many times I have had a repeat guest.
I'm very, very honored to be back on here again. I loved our first chat, Steve, a whole lot.
Me too, man. Me too. And our first chat came along with the release of some music, and that music is dope as balls. So everybody make sure you go check that out. I don't know, just go to, well, in theory, all of you bastards should be subscribed. So just go through your feed or search, or however you search in your particular podcatcher, and search Ambush Vin. There's some pretty cool music on there, and we have a wonderful conversation, much like today.
Yeah.
So last time when we talked, I think it was before COVID, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was definitely before COVID. I was getting ready to release slasher music, and that was like pre-Halloween last year.
Oh, shit. Man, I tell you what, this COVID has got my calendar and my sense of time and days all messed up.
Yeah, cabin fever, dude.
Oh, it's insane. I mean, usually you mark the time by, like you said, I remember I was talking to this dude because it was releasing music right before Halloween. And now I'm just like, did we ever have Halloween before? Like, I don't remember anything. All right. Vin, the last time we talked, I think you were working at, was it U.S. Steel, right?
Yep.
You still there?
Yep. Still am.
So, before we dive deep into what we're going to talk about on this episode, tell me about how COVID has affected your work life, your personal life, your musical life, your health, if applicable.
Ironically, I know that a lot of the workforce in the United States really got hit bad by COVID, and that includes my workforce. But yeah, I was fortunate enough not to get furloughed at my job, but unfortunately, I saw a lot of our hourly guys, my own crew, they got furloughed during that time, but I didn't get laid off.
Well, that's good.
Well, our production was cut. It was kind of like they were bouncing managers to different areas of the plant, and it was kind of cool because I actually got to experience and learn another process. And it was crazy because it's like one of those processes that I constantly bitched about, until I actually learned the job and got to work with other crews and saw that, oh, man, okay, I see why, we have to wait. Or I think from my perspective that they're slowing us down. But actually, those guys worked their asses off, man. And with like a shortened crew, it was even more work because they still had to perform the same amount of work with less people. But the worst thing I think about my experience with COVID was experiencing quarantine. And it's crazy because actually like right before they shut the country down. So I decided to take a road trip to Canada, to Winnipeg.
What the hell?
Yeah, I did, dude. I'm not gonna lie. It was like March the 13th, and it was actually like I'm going to shoot a video. Shot a song, Spring Sauces. I had recorded up there, and my good buddy David Marcus, he like shoots a lot of my videos up there. So I said, okay, I'm gonna drive to Canada down I-94, and so this is March 12th, and Chicagoland, Indiana, it's like the weather's iffy. But when I left home, it was literally like 60 degrees. So Wisconsin, Minnesota, and North Dakota. I would advise anybody who is not used to driving inclement weather to just don't travel those 3 states like in between like November and March, seriously, because the snow was ridiculous. And I rented a Ford Fiesta to save gas. And so I got to Canada, we shot the video, and my buddy calls me and he's like, dude, Justin Trudeau is on TV now talking about closing the borders. Are you still in Canada? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you might want to leave like right now. So I look at my boy and I tell him, hey man, all right, put the camera in the trunk, I'll be back. He's like, oh, okay, so when we're going to finish the shoot? And I'm like, whenever you guys open the borders back up.
Oh, no.
He's like, really, dude? I'm like, yeah. So, dude, I got from Winnipeg to the border in like a half hour. It might have been less than that. I was flying, and it was snowing. And I knew something was up because when I was going there, so they're really anal about checking cars from the States at customs.
What for? What are they looking for? I know if you're coming in from the southern border, they're looking for drugs, but what are they looking for from the northern border?
Actually, I don't know. But I know every time I've driven through there before, they're looking for everything. Like, I know I'm going to spend at least an hour and a half at customs.
Are you shitting me?
No lie, at least an hour and a half. And the thing about it is I go through the Pembina, North Dakota crossing. So it's like literally no traffic, hardly.
Maybe that's your problem. Maybe that it's such a remote crossing location that they're bored out of their mind and they're like, let's see what color underwear this dude's wearing.
Yeah, it's a lot of truck traffic. A lot of commercial traffic goes through there. But most of the time, I'm literally like, I'm waiting at the gate to park less than 5 minutes. Once I park, then you have to fill out the forms. They ask you, why are you coming to Canada? And blah, 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 blah. And you just sitting there while they search your stuff, man, and it's crazy. But this time, I literally pull up to the guard, say, okay, so what's your reason for going to Winnipeg? And I'm like, shoot a video and, visit friends, And he's like, oh, okay, you got family there? I'm like, no. And he's like, oh, okay, so how long are you going to be there? I said, a couple of days. And he's like, okay, have a great trip. Be safe. I'm like, that's it? You don't want me to pull to the side and park and go see? He's like, nope, go. I'm like, okay. And it was the same thing on the way back. So even these guys were spooked of COVID. They didn't search anything, the car or nothing. And I was like in shock. The crazy part about it, though, is once I got back through the border, I asked him, I said, hey, are you guys shutting the border down? He said, it could be any time now. Once we get the call, that's it. And I'm like, oh, man. And it was like literally like 12 hours later, they shut the border down.
Oh, wow.
But I got through there, and dude, no lie, this is like March the 14th. And I got through there, and it's like literally a blizzard in North Dakota. And I'm in a Ford Fiesta.
Wow.
Oh, my God. I just wonder, like, why does everybody in North Dakota have trucks? I mean, big trucks, F-150s and, trucks like that. I got it. Because those guys were driving down the highway like it was nothing. I mean, the speed limit in North Dakota on the highway is 75 miles per hour. And I literally did 30 miles per hour all the way from the Canadian border to Minnesota.
Oh, my goodness.
No lie. That whole weekend was crazy. It's more to that story. And, it's crazy because now I'm like, yeah, so why did I drive to Canada? Because every time I drive to Canada, it's like some kind of adventure. And no lie, it's supposed to be 13 hours from, Hammond to Canada, and it's literally I've never made that trip in anything less than 16 hours.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm one of those idiots who likes to drive straight without stopping for anything except for like to use the bathroom or get gas.
Wow.
I'm just hopped up off Monster and coffee, man. Just driving.
All right. Well, I'm glad that you made it okay, and I'm glad that they didn't search you, considering you had a trunk full of illegal Canadians. So let's talk about this new album. I guess it's an EP, right? There's 5 songs?
Yes, sir.
And is it called Shakespeare?
Yep.
All right. First, why is it called Shakespeare?
I love classic literature. I love classic arts, classic theater, and I really actually love medieval theater, if you will, like Camelot, Shakespeare, and even earlier like Dante and, the Iliad, Homer, classic writings. I love it. So my thought was, based on my experience of going through this divorce, Shakespeare was a master of theater and like a master playwright. So I felt like I was in the middle of a production when I looked back at what was going on. It was like I was the narrator, and I'm actually the one who I wrote this drama, and I experienced the drama, and you even had like a co-star or the main actress, if you will. So it's like the audience, which would be the listeners, are listening to or watching this theater or this drama play out while I'm narrating. I literally felt like I was Shakespeare writing this whole thing, because I'm seeing it not only through my own eyes, but I'm kind of also picturing how the audience is perceiving this. And this is like one big drama because of the experience that I went through. I mean, not even saying the process, the healing process, but it was just like more like from my perspective, once I really looked back and was able to see it in another perspective than how I saw it while I was experiencing it. It just felt like it was just a theater. It felt like it was a big play.
So the last time we spoke, I think you were married, right?
Yep.
Now, feel free to not answer this and feel free to dance around or whatever you want. But what happened?
Well, actually, the weird part about that, Steve, is that I actually was, at that time, I want to say I was maybe in somewhere between the anger stage and bargaining stage when we talked last. I'm pretty sure I was, because actually one of the songs on Shakespeare, Lady Morgana, which is the bargaining stage, I had just recorded that maybe a couple of weeks before we talked, and this was even before Shakespeare was just a concept. It was kind of just like me recording my feelings, and I didn't even realize that I would actually use this song because it was just me just writing my emotions out, my feelings. So I wasn't even happily married at that time. This has been a process that I've actually been going through since late 2017, early 2018.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Well, I am sorry about that. But this track, Lady Morgana, the bargaining track,
Yep.
that one reminds me of like old school Warren G. I probably don't have to say old school if I say Warren G, because I don't think he's put anything out in a while. But yeah, that song reminds me of like some old school Warren G, like back in the day.
Yeah.
That's really dope.
Thanks, man.
I don't know if I've said, you're welcome. I don't know if I've said it yet during this episode, but you sent me the album to listen to, and there's 5 songs, the 5 stages of grief, if you will. I know that they all have names, but I refer to them as denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance.
Right.
And I fucking love this album, Vin. This is
thanks,
so
man.
dope.
I appreciate it.
I mean, I liked your last album that you sent me, but this is levels ahead of the last one. This one is so deep and such lyrical awareness. I think everybody should check this album out. This is really dope. So you had started writing this well before your marriage actually ended, right?
Well, I'm not going to say it as an album. Lady Morgana was actually the only song that I had written, and I planned on actually just releasing that as a single, it was like one of those spots where I actually could write, because it was a point for most of 2019 for sure where like I couldn't even write like for months. And then I have a bright spot where I'm like, oh, great, I can write again. And it would always be like after big argument or something happened, and it's like, okay, let me write down how I feel. I need to do this because, I mean, music is my therapy. So when I write things out and I record it and I get it all out, then it's like, you know, I can actually sit back and reflect on with logic why I felt this way. And because, you know, emotions are irrational. We all have them, but if you think about anything while you're being emotional or you try to make logic out of emotions, it's like impossible. So once I write things down, then it's like everything just seems so much more logical. And I'm just listening to this. And when I made it the bargaining song, because I actually wrote the rest of Shakespeare in like one day, literally. Well, I say a day and a half. The bargaining song was where I was stuck at. And then for some reason, I was just going through my old songs and I'm listening to Lady Morgana. I'm like, oh, this is perfect, because it's exactly where I was at that time. You know, it's kind of like the seesaw. You want to work it out. Your logic's telling you don't, but it's like you're so complacent in a relationship and you can't imagine life without your spouse. And you're like, okay, what we got to do to work this out, even though you know it's a toxic relationship and it's time to probably end it and it's best for both parties. But now you're doing more like, okay, I know I'm wrong, even though you really don't think that you're wrong. It's just a big bargain. It's a bargain negotiation. And then at the same time, it's like a lot of begging you shouldn't really be doing. And then all in the end, you realize it's not really about rights and wrongs. It's just like, okay, the relationship is just toxic and it's time to just end it, you know, without pointing fingers. So when you reach acceptance, everything's just, it's an eye-opener. But it's a roller coaster ride.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
You know those popping phone handle things that you see on everyone's phones nowadays? Well, how would you like to put your logo on them? Does your podcast or band need new merch? Do you want to bring attention to your new book or film? Maybe you need something unique for your Patreon or crowdfunding campaign. Then visit thelogopop.com, where you can customize them with the logo of your podcast, band, business, art, school mascot, or whatever else you can think of. These are way more affordable than you may think at thelogopop.com. Mention where you heard this ad and get free shipping on your entire order. Remember, that's thelogopop.com to order your custom popping phone handles. That's thelogopop.com.
Let's get back into it.
So how long did it take you to go through these 5 stages? Or have you gone through them? Are you done?
Well, I think I'm really kind of like right now, I mean, because I moved on. So it's more like I'm pretty much done with it now. I said I've been done for about a good 5-6 months for sure. Once you reach acceptance, because a lot of people will think that, well, acceptance, that just means that your healing is over, but it's healing after acceptance. Because, okay, you accepted the fact that, you know, how this relationship affected your life and that this is the end of the relationship. You accepted it's not the end of life. But at the same time, the biggest thing that occurs after acceptance is how much of your own identity you lost. And it's like getting that back, getting back to who I was, finding myself again and making a better version of myself. Now is my time really for growth, I would say. Really still kind of learning my own identity, which I'm getting there. And I'm pretty much 98, 99% there. But it's like the little things, like confidence was a big thing for me. Before, and even in the early parts of this relationship, you know, I was a very confident person, especially when it came down to my music. Now it's like I question myself on a lot. I second guess myself. And that was like never me. I mean, that's one example. And sometimes I sit back and I think, I'm like, you know, I'm tripping. Like, why are you second guessing yourself? I mean, even with my music, like I said, with this album, I wasn't even gonna release it. It was just like, I don't know about this. You know, and then a lot of that was how would she feel about it? But then I'm like, okay, you went through these stages, and why are you still worried about how she would feel about anything? Because these are your feelings, because I'm like, well, I don't want to make it seem like I'm shitting on her. But then it's like, for one, I'm not really shitting on her. It's like I'm just really just expressing myself and my feelings, which everybody has a right to do. And for two, this is your life now. So who cares? If she takes it personal, which I hope she doesn't, or if she doesn't. Either way it goes, I'm going to put it out because on a bigger scale, for one, I needed to put it out. And for two, like I said, it's so many men who don't take the time because it's like taboo for us to express our feelings or admit that we have emotions. And society encourages that. We're supposed to be, oh, you're being oversensitive or, stupid things like that. But then, like, so many of us hold our feelings in until, like, we snap. And we all know people who've done stupid things and ended up in prison or became, like, domestic abusers. Or even worse, in a horrible situation, they ended up dead. And it's like, I feel like something that, men in particular, we need to have that dialogue. We need to encourage people because it's not a conversation we have often that, hey, it's okay to express yourself and get it out. Because now I guess the conversation is like a big thing is toxic masculinity, which I really hate that term because I really believe that it's okay for us to express ourselves and our feelings and still retain your masculinity. So if I had to call it anything else, it probably wouldn't be toxic masculinity. I don't know how I would word it, but if you just look at those two words, it's like, if I don't know anything about what they're talking about, I just feel like that, it's a blanket concept of saying like being a man is toxic. I mean, a man should be a man because we're men. And obviously, women are women. And I mean, everybody lives how they choose to live. But if you want to be masculine and be a man and still express your feelings, then that's okay. And a lot of men just aren't encouraged to do that, especially, in my community, the more urban community. It's really bad.
Yeah, from what I can tell, the urban community, if you even start to talk about an emotion, then, why are you being a bitch, dude?
No lie. That's exactly what it is. And that's another reason why I was kind of like hesitating to put it out. But the craziest part is, my friends and even like people who I call associates, men, when they heard it, they were like, dude, you need to put this out. I feel the hell out of this. Man, I feel this. I went through this or I'm going through this. And it's like, man, a lot of people, it's not just me.
Yeah, no kidding. You said some people, when you played it for them, they said they felt like they were currently going through it?
Yep.
All right, name them.
I can't do it to them. I can't do it to them.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think a growing number of, men and women have been or are going to be in this situation that you found yourself in. I myself have been there and it was not fun. But having gone through all of that and come out the other side, I think that, like you said, it allows you to find the parts of you that you lost or gave away during that relationship.
Yep. And
I feel like I emerged a better person, and it sounds like you feel that way about your situation as well.
Oh, most definitely. I did. It's crazy because like I went from not being able to imagine life without her to I'm going to be single forever. I never, ever want to get serious with another woman again to being serious with another woman again. And it's crazy because when I said that, it was kind of like, didn't expect it, and it just happened. That's the way it usually goes. The opposite happens from what you say. I'm not going to do this anymore. And then next thing I know, I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, this happened. Didn't expect it, but it happened.
This is going to be a super terrible example, but it seems like, when you were a kid and your mom said, hey, go grab me a wooden spoon out of that drawer. And you go to that drawer and you're looking all over the place and you're looking all over the place. And you're like, I can't find it. And she's like, it's in the drawer. You're like, I don't see it. She's like, it's in the drawer. You're like, I don't see it. You're looking all over the place. And then she walks over and just picks it up right off the top.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, you spend literally, I think that that phrase, didn't see the forest for the trees or whatever. I think that really, really applies to what we're talking about here with relationships and things. I think that the more that you're looking for something, or do you remember back in the late 80s, early 90s, there was those pictures that if you stared at it long enough, it turned into something else?
Yep.
And I feel like that's what looking for a person, looking for a significant other, looking for a relationship, looking for someone to love and be loved. I think that a lot of the times that's what happens to us. We're so busy looking for, what we want or what we think we're needing. And then sometimes we just don't even notice that, bam, there it is. And then other times we could be so focused on fixing whatever we perceive the problem is that we don't realize that all of these problems have added up and mounted up. And now this situation is almost untenable, almost unfixable. And sometimes it is unfixable. And so I think that we all put blinders on with regard to relationships in different ways, whether we're trying to convince ourselves that something isn't happening or convince ourselves that something is happening. Taking it back to this album, Shakespeare, I feel like a lot of what you're saying in these songs sort of helps get that point across. Whether you're talking about denial or anger or, whatever, I feel like you can tell that you were going through these stages and feelings at the time that you wrote these. It's super dope. I wish I could, I wish I was as poetic with words as you are so that I could express how important I think this album is. I think that each one of these stages, having, like I said, been there, you're spot on with these lyrics and these feelings. I just wish I could express, I wish I could express my love for this album the way you expressed the album.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It's, like everybody doesn't go through the stages in that order. Like some people start with depression, some people start with anger. And the thing is that acceptance is always the ultimate goal, which a lot of people don't make it to. But acceptance is always the last stage that you actually reach. So it was a hard album for me to write. It was the hardest thing I've had to write in life. But in the end, I'm glad that I took the time to write it, because not only could I reflect, but I made sense of it all. And then in the end, you just realize that, hey, because, we both did a lot of finger pointing, and really this relationship was over a long time before we made it official. But you realize that it takes two people to get to that point. It takes two people to make a toxic relationship. A lot of people say that this is over and they hold on to anger for years. It's like, well, you're still going through your process, because now it's like, I'm not angry about it. I see it for what it was. One of us really should have stepped forward and really said, hey, you know what? This isn't working. And we both did a lot to stay in this relationship when we should have just let it go a long time ago. But we didn't.
How long were you married?
For 10 years.
That makes it tougher. The longer it goes, the harder it is. And I think that the longer it goes, the harder it is to accept that it's broken. You could be 8 years in and feeling like things just aren't right and things are starting to add up, but you keep convincing yourself, look, I've been here for 8 years. Things have been, for the most part, fine, or we wouldn't have lasted 8 years. So maybe we can just fix this or fix that. But, then that, like you said, that stuff keeps building up. Next thing you know, it's been 10 years and you spent the last 2 years trying to save it, and it ain't savable, man.
That's exactly, you hit it right on the head, Steve, because honestly, I want to say that our marriage was actually, I can even probably go before the marriage, at least from my end. I'm pretty sure on her end too, once she goes through her process and thinks about it. I didn't love her the way that she wanted to be loved, and she didn't love me the way that I wanted to be loved. We loved each other, sure, but if you're talking about spending your life with somebody, it should be with somebody who is loving you the way that you want to be loved and treating you the way you want to be treated. And we both failed at that, and we just tried to cling on to it for so long because neither one of us wanted to be divorced. But the longer we held on to it, the worse it got. over time. When I look back at it, I can honestly say that it never got better overall. There was spurts where things seemed like they were getting better, but it was things, from her own standpoint, from her own morals and her own values that she shouldn't have accepted if she didn't agree with it. And on my part, it was definitely things against my morals and values and how I want to live my life that I shouldn't accept it, that I was accepted. And that's what made it toxic, because we both were accepting things that we didn't want to accept.
That makes sense.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Hi, I'm Erica.
And I'm Cassandra.
And we're the hosts of Trashy Trashy.
We're a podcast filled with trashy news stories and garbage people.
Did you leave the scene of an accident to go tanning?
Do you refer to wearing the strap down on your Crocs as sports mode?
Have you ordered Domino's online before they even open in the morning?
Are you switching the same AAA batteries from your TV remote to your vibrator instead of just buying more batteries?
Or are you normal?
Check us out wherever you download podcasts.
Let's get back into it.
More and more I hear people talking about the things that we didn't learn in school.
Mm-hmm.
Like we didn't really learn how to budget. We didn't learn how to run a household. We didn't learn what credit really is.
Right.
And I think that a lot of the things that we weren't prepared for sort of slapped us really hard when we became adults.
Oh, yeah.
Managing money and managing credit, or, just the whole concept of, if I don't buy this thing now, then I can buy the better one that I really like later, or whatever, like there's all these things that we didn't learn. And I think one of the things that we're never taught really is what love means. And so sort of like, and this is going to sound a little bit weird, but a lot of us don't really get the birds and the bees talk. And so we learn about sex and sexual relationships either through, back in the day, through magazines or videos, or now on the internet, or, our friends would tell us things. And so I think that the further we get away from actually learning those things in an appropriate way, the worse we get as far as healthy versions of those types of relationships. Like, if you learn everything about sex and sexual relationships from, online porn, then when you actually do have a sexual relationship with a partner, you're going to have some issues. There's things that happen in front of a camera that never happen in private times for reasons.
Oh, tell me about it.
And I feel that way about love. So when nobody shows us or tells us what love is, and, more and more we come from broken homes. Some of us don't have a father in the picture. Some of us don't have a mother in the picture. And some of us, when those people are in the picture, they fucking hate each other and they fight like cats and dogs, in front of the children or whatever. And so I think that the further we get away from seeing a functional relationship, the harder it is for us to understand what that is. I think that for the most part, since we're not really taught or shown what love is or how to love somebody or how to be loved,
mm-hmm.
I think we get it from TVs and books and movies and fucking fairy tales. I know that when I was growing up, my idea of love changed almost with every relationship, because when I first started falling in love or being loved or whatever, I had this fairy tale princess sort of imagination about what love is supposed to be. You're never going to argue. You're never going to disagree. Everybody's going to be smiles all the time. It's all hugs and kisses nonstop. And that glass slipper don't fit, my friend.
No, it doesn't.
But that doesn't mean that it wasn't love. That just means that it wasn't what I thought love was. And so I think that as we get older and as we mature through different relationships, I think that in our minds, we change the definition of love. Does that make sense? I know it sounds hokey as fuck, but...
Yes. When we were talking, when I first sent you the album, and you said the realest thing ever. We were texting, and when you said that with your last relationships, that you couldn't appreciate who you had now if you hadn't went through those relationships. And that was like spot on, because I'm like, I think now, the person that I'm with, let me see, my first marriage was 98. So it's like at that point in time, I wouldn't even imagine myself with this person at all. You know, I wasn't even on that type of level. I was looking for something completely different. You just have to go through life and experience life to appreciate different things. You grow and you mature. We get to a point where we realize what we really want out of life. I'm not going to even say an age thing because everybody matures at a different rate. But when you reach maturity, then you realize, like, okay, I know what I want. I'm seeing what I want now. And it's definitely not what I wanted at 22 or 23. You know, especially not in my early 40s now. Who would I see? What type of person do I envision myself becoming old with? You know, because when I was younger, it was like, I love the adrenaline of being with a more daring or adventurous type of woman, a type of woman who never wants to sit down and just enjoy the view. But now I'm more like, you know, I just want to be with somebody who wants to sit back and enjoy the view, but still be spontaneous and have adventures, but doesn't want to ride the roller coaster anymore, but more like less wants to walk around the theme park and enjoy the attractions without getting on a roller coaster. And the ironic part about what you just said earlier about not knowing what love is, I think what a lot of people don't realize, at least I didn't, is that the most important relationship that you're going to have when it comes to learning how to love or learning about love is with yourself.
And learning to be loved, because there is an action required in being loved.
Right.
To put a dot on what you're saying there, you know, that when you're young, you want somebody adventurous and, you know, whatever. The great Dr. Drew says that you should choose butterflies over lightning bolts. If someone gives you that jolt, like you were talking about, that adrenaline rush, that's probably going to end poorly, because everything that you're going to do with that person is going to be adrenaline based. And also adrenaline runs out. That lightning bolt will fade.
Yep.
And just like with everything, the highs and the low, you know, the highs come with the lows. And so if you're having an adrenaline-based relationship or a lightning bolt feeling, then those lows are going to be pretty low. Whereas butterflies, they don't really fade.
Nope. That's a great analogy, and he's spot on with that.
Now, Vin, there's 5 songs on this EP. Again, they're denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Would it be okay if I played one of these songs?
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Do you want to pick it, and do you want to introduce it like you're a radio DJ?
Okay. Sure, I will do that. This is Alcatraz, and this is the song that reflects the acceptance stage of the 5 stages of grief. And I would like you guys to hear this song, because this is the stage, this is the ultimate goal that you're trying to get to when you're experiencing the 5 stages of grief.
Off the new EP, Shakespeare.
Happiness is a choice. I got 20/20, so I'm not in denial. I'm definitely not mad. I'm not bargaining. I love me and value myself too much for that. I'm not depressed. It's time to accept this and move on.
I feel so trapped. These memories don't fade.
I keep thinking, where did it go?
But I gotta face all my demons, 'cause I can't get away.
Forget yourself for a second and move on. The universe is where being cruel is when you still got love for the one who made you look like a damn fool. No matter what they do, you forgive and keep moving. And all the time, they can only see you as a tool. When you see who they really was behind the image, they project to hide their insecurity. And you disappointed more than hurt, 'cause you support the jerk. And your dreams priority over your own needs. Hearts bleed 'cause you're seeing what you want. Instead of reality, you see the opposite. Hypnotized by potential that you can see, but this version that you got is a rough composite of an unfinished self-portrait that you're not painting. Except that the artist may never finish. You dedicated to a set of memories, and it's hard to see when you're blind, so don't reminisce. Take the red pill and see the real world for the first time. All the time that you spent wasn't wasted. It's a lesson learned, and I don't feel burned. Earn the right to be loved, should never have to chase it. I can taste revenge that I want to get, but don't get satisfaction from her hurting. It feels worse 'cause I thought I healed in between steps 4 and 5, but old feelings still lurking. Take a step back, reassess then decide I need to leave. But my loyalty is a weakness, even though hers wasn't there. And I know it cause it's rare that I felt like royalty. Hope the story be good in the end, and your friends motivate you to reach for the stars. Avoid distractions, push you up past where they are. I no longer live behind bars.
I feel so trapped. These memories don't fade.
I keep thinking, where did it go?
But I gotta face all my demons cause I can't get away.
Forget yourself for a second and move on.
I feel so trapped. These memories don't fade.
I keep thinking, where did it go?
But I gotta face all my demons cause I can't get away.
Forget yourself for a second and move on. It's hard to escape when you've been here a long time. You're not innocent but didn't do the crime. At first fingers point but then you realize you're your own judge and you giving yourself time. Chain got a crack but it ain't broke yet. You got false hope but you ain't smoked yet. When you deep in your thoughts you gon' see the logic, let it go and do not resurrect. Compromise who I was for a long time. Lived in darkness but all the time I'm still learning. But I had to choose to see the lesson for myself. Even when I got help still felt myself burning. Wondering what could I do different. At first I accepted all the blame I allowed me to accept bad behavior. I realized it took two to get where we at now. Feel like I released all my stories seeming. Time to forgive myself for the self-treason. See the reason why you projecting. Self-inspection is the first step to beat your demons. But you gotta wanna make the first move. As long as you don't, you the only one lose. I accept your apology, but I held the door open for years. You just had to walk through. I don't hate you, hope you find peace and release all that anger, just let it go. We both did the best that we could with the tools available, so I'd rather walk down the high road. No regrets for the time that we had together, but we gotta move on, time to leave. Hopefully you accept that, cherish the memories and both walk away with maturity.
I feel so trapped. These memories don't fade.
I keep thinking, where did it go?
But I gotta face all my demons cause I can't get away.
Forget yourself for a second and move on.
I feel so trapped. These memories don't fade.
I keep thinking, where did it go?
But I gotta face all my demons cause I can't get away.
Forget yourself for a second and move on.
One of the things that I like about this song, and thank you for letting me play it, I can't wait to hear people's response to it. One of the things that I like about the song is that this is the song that lets you know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that you are going to come through this. You're not going to be unscathed, and you may even be scarred, but you will get through it, and that's what I really love about this song. And I like that you put this song last on the album, because that's where it should be, because this is after you went through all that other shit.
Yeah.
You had to go through all that to get here, like what we were talking about earlier.
Yep, you have to.
So what is the plan with this album? How are you going to get it out there?
So I thought about it and I was like, well, so of course I want to market it to music outlets, but I want to do a lot of word of mouth. So I've been hitting a lot of like mental health forums and different Facebook groups, which I really, honestly, I'm not shitting on Facebook, but I hate Facebook. I'm not going to lie, because it's like, it's so much toxicity on Facebook. It's ridiculous, and I'm constantly every day just because, like I said, I'm still like not healing, but it's more like I'm still realizing what I want in my environment. And even online, you don't realize that affects your aura. So I'm following people. I'm friending people because I don't want to see this. Facebook made us really become nosy people and care about what's actually going on in other people's lives. That's none of our business.
That's true.
Like, I find myself sometimes scrolling and I'll see a comment or a post and it'll be about, somebody saying something about somebody else. And I was like, I got to look in the comments. All right, let me quit it. Because now it's like we've turned life into some big reality show, especially online. It's like most of the things you see on Facebook is not a reflection of who people really are. And, the worst of us tends to come out on Facebook. So one decision I had to make is like everything I'm just doing or saying, even online, is just going to be positive. it's going to be motivational. So that's what I do. But I'm also pitching it to online men's journals, mental health outlets, and magazines and stuff, and relationship outlets. People who talk about relationships, mainstream radio DJs, because like I said, this is like something that I think everybody needs to hear, because even women can get something out of this, because I created a focus group just to say, I want to see what people think about this. Believe it or not, most of the respondents were women, and they loved it. Not only just because they really want their own spouses or their own significant others to open up about their feelings, which they typically don't, but also a lot of them experienced it themselves, and they're experiencing it as we speak.
Again, name them. Just kidding.
Confidentiality, man.
So you said that most of the people who responded were women.
Yep.
Who did you send it to? I don't mean who, but I mean like what groups did you send it to? If it was noticeable enough that it was mostly women that responded, what groups of people did you send it out to?
So I had control groups. Well, I'm not going to say control groups, but it just kind of happened that way. Single women, married women, women in relationships, women who are part of the LGBTQ plus community, also younger women and older women. It's pretty much just a variety of women.
So did you only send this to women?
No, I sent it to a lot of men too.
Okay.
And a lot of the guys just told me their responses, and it was just like maybe the ratio of women who responded to men was like 70-30. And a lot of the guys would just hear it and just text me or call me and like, dude, I love this, or I feel this song, but I don't feel this one so much, but the women actually took the time to fill out the evaluation form.
So let's call them focus groups, right? Not control groups.
Right.
Would you say that you sent it to roughly an equal amount of women versus men?
Well, I actually sent it to more men than women.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting. What made you decide to focus group this album?
Well, most of my projects and my niche, I mostly make music that's either about, the canon I'm creating, sci-fi, like type of pop culture based, or nerdy music, as opposed to real life experience. I mean, I hadn't made an entire project just based on an experience or based on something that people might have actually experienced in years, not since 2015, like sci-fi music. And that wasn't even like an entire project based on experience. But I did a survey amongst my fam, just the people who actually listen to my music. And I was like, hey, would you guys be willing to take a survey for me? It's going to make the experience better, because I want to tailor my music more to what you guys want to hear. And they're like, okay, sure. So it was a few questions on there, like, of course, how old are you? What do you think about the music? It was more based on music today. Like, what type of hip hop would you like to hear? What don't you like about hip hop? And, other questions like, where do you go to stream most of your music? But the overwhelming response I got was they want to hear more of the music I make in my niche, which meant that I was on the right track. But at the same time, a lot of people want more relatable music. They wanted more music based on experience, and they want to hear more stories. And that was kind of the start of putting this project together, because I felt like, okay, I can still fit this within my niche. I mean, for example, like all the song titles, especially Lady Morgana, because Lady Morgana, I mean, if you know anything about like Camelot lore, Lady Morgana was the ultimate manipulator. I mean, she manipulated the shit out of Arthur and everybody else in the King's Court and Camelot in general. So, I mean, I'm hoping that people who don't know about Lady Morgana were like, why did he title this song Lady Morgana? Who is Lady Morgana? But at the same time, more relatable for a lot of people based on, their experience. And it also was a story. And hopefully I get the budget to actually make this into a soap opera type of series. The music videos like a soap opera type of series. Like, I want to release one song 1 week to start the story, all the way up for like 5 weeks on my YouTube channel, all the way up to Alcatraz.
So like a short film in 5 parts?
Yep.
Oh, that sounds dope. Ambush Vin, as we're heading out, can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media?
Well, everything's at Ambush Vin. Honestly, it's like Twitter, Instagram. I'm the most active on Instagram, Facebook, my website, which is like the headquarters for everything, ambushvin.com. For those of you guys who are into learning all the facts behind a canon or a universe, I'm creating my own universe. It's called the Sci-Fi Music League of Multiverses with original characters and original stories. And that's on fandom.com. It's a sci-fi music wiki. Spotify, Ambush Vin, Apple Music, Ambush Vin, YouTube, Ambush Vin, pretty much everywhere you listen to music, search Ambush Vin. I'm there.
Kick ass. Now, Vin, before I let you go, is there anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about today?
One thing I did want to touch on, without giving too much away, the 5 songs. So the 5 stages of grief, actually some models say that there's more than 5 stages of grief, which for some people there are. But my 5 stages were denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. The titles are Sideshow, which pretty much the denial stage. Like we talked about, you're trying to cling, and you're not believing that this is happening, and you should have accepted this a long time ago, but now you're starting the whole process. You're in denial, but we both were in denial in this case. Then anger, which is, of course, self-explanatory. That's Black Mirror. So Black Mirror is more like I was seeing myself, but when I looked in the mirror, it was a dark reflection. I didn't see anything but darkness at that time, and that's the reason why it's called Black Mirror. Lady Morgana, we just covered that, explained that. Unconfident, which was probably, to me, that's my favorite song because that's the one song that solely, it had nothing to do with the relationship. It was actually how I was feeling. And that's the depression stage that you don't think anything, there's no future. You can't see yourself climbing out of this. You just like, how am I going to get out of this? I'm not myself. I just want to sit and soak in the darkness. You're going into the world. You're putting a fake smile on your face. The rest of the world, nobody knows that you're going through this and you're embarrassed or even fearful to talk about it. But here you are. And then the song you guys heard is Alcatraz, which is It's Gonna Be Okay. You're making logic out of everything. And I named that song Alcatraz because I was actually at a point where at the beginning of acceptance, you're accepting it, but you still feel trapped. You're trying to figure out, how can I move on? You see what this is, but now you're just trying to figure out how to move on. You're on an island, and you feel like you're on an island by yourself in a jail cell in a prison, but the prison is of your own making. And then you realize there's nobody holding you there but yourself. So now you got to figure out how to escape and make it back to the real world, to civilization. So that's just pretty much a brief overview about it. And the other thing I want to state is this EP was not about me shitting on my marriage or shitting on her, because like I said, it took 2 people to get here and I played a part in that, but this was my story. And I said that at the beginning of the EP, there's 2 sides to every story, and this one is just mine, so it's not about shitting on the other person. It's really about making your way to becoming a better you, and it's steps to do that. And these are the steps that I had to take. Everybody's journey is different, but this was just my journey to achieving emotional maturity and starting to pave my way to growth. That's pretty much what I want to say.
Well, I think you said it, and you said it well, my friend. Again, everybody go check out Ambush Vin on all those various social media platforms. Basically, if you just search Ambush Vin on your Google machine, you will find him everywhere. I also recommend checking out his music. It's super dope. You got to hear some in the last time he was here, and you got to hear some in this episode. Again, Vin, I thank you very, very much for letting me play those. I'm honored to be able to have the opportunity to share those songs with my audience, sir.
Oh, dude, I'm honored to be here. I'm really honored to be on here. I love Fascination Street. It's a great podcast. You have some great guests, and it's one of the better podcasts I think everybody should tune into, because they're honestly guests for everyone on the podcast.
I love hearing that. Thank you so much, Ambush Vin. You have a great rest of your day.
You too. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it again.
All right, bye.
Bye.
As always, thanks for listening, Streetwalkers. And don't forget, follow the show on Twitter at FascinationSTPD, on Instagram at Fascination Street Pod. Follow the podcast page on Facebook at Fascination Street Podcast. And of course, you can always email me at fascinationstreetpod@gmail.com. And if you haven't already, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and rate us on iTunes. Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2014 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is Apollo from the 2001 album Into the Known by the band Sci-Fi. Thanks for hanging out with us and getting to know a little bit about our guest. We'll see you next time on Fascination Street.